You know, your brain is, without a doubt, the most complicated thing we know of in the entire universe. It's what makes you, well, you. Every single thought, every feeling, every memory. But here's a question for you. What if you aren't the one in the driver's seat? Let's dig in and ask that big question. Who is really in control here?
Oh, yeah, we have all been there. You tell yourself, all right, just 2 episodes tonight, then bed. But then hours go by and you hear that little voice in your head, okay, just one more. See, it feels like we're calling the shots, but a lot of the time, our brain seems to have a completely different agenda.
And then that moment hits you, right? Wait a second. Why am I still doing this? The answer to that question isn't just about willpower. Nope. It's buried deep, deep inside that incredible, complex machine between your ears. And we're about to find out just how deep that rabbit hole goes.
To really get what's going on, you've got to appreciate the sheer scale of this thing. Your brain has almost 90 billion neurons. All of that insane wiring, all those connections, they all work together to create this feeling of a single unified you. But as you're about to see, that feeling, it's kind of a masterful illusion. Here's the most important thing to get. Your conscious mind, the part of you listening to me right now, it's just the very tip of the iceberg. Underneath the surface, your brain is running a million different hidden programs. I'm talking at keeping your heart beating, processing everything you see and hear, even making decisions. That huge unconscious world, that's where most of the action is. So let's start with a really dramatic example of the brain running on autopilot, sleepwalking. Neuroscientists basically see it as a glitch in the system, right? A state where our conscious self, our identity, is just not at the controls. And this just shows how incredibly capable our unconscious brain really is. A sleepwalker can do some amazingly complex things, not just walking around, but eating, even driving a car. In one case, a woman painted a perfect triangle on her kitchen wall, all while she was completely out. She woke up with zero memory of it, just insisting, that wasn't me. So how is that even possible? Well, scientists found that the brain is basically split. When someone's sleepwalking, the motor cortex, the part that controls movement, is totally awake. But the prefrontal cortex, the part that's responsible for making choices and self-awareness, the CEO of the brain, it's completely asleep. The pilot is out, but the plane is still flying. Now, that is fascinating stuff, but believe me, it gets so much stranger. The most mind-bending proof of all of this comes from what are called split brain patients, and their cases suggest something absolutely incredible, that two completely separate minds can exist inside one skull. This quote from the pioneering researcher Michael Gazzaniga really just says it all. This isn't just some wild theory. It's something that scientists have actually seen with their own eyes, and it totally flips our idea of the self on its head. And the key to this whole discovery is something called the corpus callosum. Think of it like a giant superhighway of information connecting the left and right halves of your brain. Now, in a last-ditch effort to treat really severe epilepsy, surgeons would sometimes cut this bridge. And by doing that, they accidentally opened up a window into two separate, independent minds. This classic experiment explains everything. So first, they flash the word Texas only to the patient's right brain. When they ask him what word he saw, his verbal left brain honestly says, I didn't see a word. But then, they ask him to draw what he saw with his left hand, and he draws a cowboy hat. His right brain knew the answer the whole time. The two minds could only talk to each other on the piece of paper in front of them, not inside his head. It's wild. So the conclusion here is pretty unavoidable. That feeling of being a single unified I is, in a way, an illusion. Your consciousness is actually more like a team, a collection of many different parts and systems all working together. And, well, sometimes not working together. Now, if that wasn't complicated enough for you, it turns out the story doesn't even stop inside your own head. Your brain is constantly being shaped and molded by the people around you, and even by things that happened to your ancestors long before you were ever born. We are the most social species on the planet, and a huge part of our brain is just hardwired for connecting with others. Emotions like guilt, they're not just feelings. They're powerful biological programs. They're like a social compass, helping us navigate tricky situations and keep our relationships intact. The tragic story of Phineas Gage is the ultimate proof of this. He was a good, respected foreman until a terrible accident sent an iron rod straight through his prefrontal cortex, the brain's emotional thermostat.
He lived, but his personality was just gone. He became profane, impulsive, and lost all of his social filters. His friends famously said he was no longer Dage. This case was a landmark moment in science because it showed that your personality, your morality, the very essence of who you are, is physically located in your brain. And get this, that influence can even stretch across time, across generations. We're now learning that big events like trauma or a famine can leave a mark not just on our memories, but on our actual DNA. It's a field called epigenetics, and it basically means that the experiences of your ancestors can change how your genes work today, literally wiring their history right into your biology. So after all this, it might feel like we're just puppets, right? Puppets of our biology and our history. But this complicated picture doesn't mean we have no control. Actually, maybe the real secret to being in control isn't about grabbing the wheel tighter, but knowing when to let go. Let's look at a moment of pure, spontaneous creation. Think of a freestyle rapper just pulling rhymes out of thin air. What is possibly happening inside their brain during that peak creative moment? Well, the answer is pretty surprising. Brain scans of artists when they're improvising show something truly remarkable. The prefrontal cortex, that same area involved in self-monitoring and planning and conscious control, it actually powers down. It deactivates. To be truly creative, to get into that awesome state of flow, you literally have to turn off your inner critic. And this isn't just for artists either. Think about a pro basketball player shooting free throws. They've done it a million times. But in a huge, high-stakes moment, if they start to think about the mechanics, if they get conscious about it, their performance tanks. They choke. To achieve peak performance in a skill you've mastered, you often have to get your conscious self out of the way and just let the rest of your brain do what it does best. So let's circle back. Who's in control? Well, it's a delicate dance. Your conscious self is just one player in this massive orchestra. You're guided by all these unconscious processes. You're made up of all these different parts. You're shaped by society and your family's history. Control isn't just an on-off switch. It's this constant, ongoing negotiation between all these different forces. When it comes down to it, your brain is a storyteller. Its main job is to weave a coherent narrative that makes sense, with you as the main character. But after everything we've just seen, it's probably worth asking, who's really the author of your story?